Well, hey, there you are. Hope everyone's doing good. All right, so it's Monday of Thanksgiving week. I decided, since we haven't really talked about anything, I decided to go on today rather than to meet with you guys in a go-to meeting, that I want to post videos dealing with whatever chapter number it is, that is the endocrine system. The endocrine system is what we're going to be talking about. And so I thought, people prefer this approach. So I went on and we'll talk on Monday again in person. But I decided it was better to go on and handle this group of slides, this subject, via YouTube. I'm back. So anyway, I am in my home office again, and we're ready to talk about the endocrine system. And the endocrine system is the system of hormones. And what is a hormone? A hormone is a chemical messenger, and it's just broadcast out there. And when I say broadcast, what am I meaning? I mean, it is secreted into your circulatory system, and it goes everywhere. And some of the places have receivers that can receive it. So some of the cells are going to have receptors that can combine with the hormone. Now, so we have endocrine organs that secrete hormones, and then we have cells, target cells, that have receptors that can bind to that hormone. And what does it do? We had said a hormone is a chemical messenger. And if you're a messenger, there's usually a response, right? So if you are a chemical messenger, then and you've combined with a cell, a target cell that has a receptor for that hormone, then there's going to be a response in that target cell. And that response will be a change in the metabolism. Just to look at my slides here for a second, I say hormones are chemical messengers that are secreted into the blood and that affect the functioning of other cells, but not all cells, just the ones that have a receptor for it. And so we go on in slide number 2, we go on to say that any given hormone is going to only affect a certain subset of cells. And we had said, and we have a diagram here on slide number 2, where we see 3 different cells, and it looks like one of them has a receptor for hormone A, and then the one on the far right has a receptor for hormone B, and the one in the middle, hormone receptors for A and B. So you see, you have hormones are going to be affecting different kinds of cells. So we have hormones that are going to have their effect on specific cells, and then where do they come from? Well, they come from endocrine glands. So the endocrine glands, we have some major glands. We have one in your brain two in your brain really, that we'll even call the master gland will be what we call the hypothalamus. And when we get next semester, when we're looking at the brain, you're going to say, that is it's like almost a nondescript region of the brain. But it has a huge effect on physiology. And so in the brain, we have the hypothalamus, and then it communicates with another part of the brain called the pituitary gland. Those two are going to be controlling 95% of physiology. So they have a really huge effect on your physiology. And then we have other glands throughout the body. We have the thyroid gland and the parathyroid gland. They're right there in the same location in your neck. And then moving on down, we have the thymus in your chest, and we have the adrenal glands on top of your kidneys. Your kidneys are actually endocrine glands as well. We have the pancreas, and we have, I'm trying to think if I've left anything out, the pancreas, and then we have the testes and the ovaries. So your sex organs are going to be endocrine glands as well. Let me glance at my picture here to make sure. The pineal gland in your brain is going to control wakefulness, when you feel awake, when you feel sleepy, that kind of thing. All right, so those are the major endocrine glands. And for the most part, we're going to talk about, and it gets really messy when you're studying the endocrine system. You'll see that one hormone has an effect on another, on an endocrine gland in many cases, which releases another hormone, which maybe even has an effect on another endocrine gland. I mean, there's multiple endocrine glands, and we have something we'll talk about that I wasn't meaning to talk about now, but I will. It's something called a tropic hormone. And a tropic hormone is one of these intermediate hormones. So we had said, when we talk about the hypothalamic axis hormones, and that's the hypothalamus to the anterior pituitary gland, to other glands, we have hormones that are communicating between the endocrine glands, but it's not the final hormone, right? So when we talk about some of the hormones, there are these intermediate hormones that are in the pathway. And so we'll talk about the hypothalamus pituitary axis. And the hormones that are between there are called tropic. Tropic hormones are hormones that have their effect on another endocrine gland, causing the release of a different hormone. And then we have the hormones that are going to be the final hormones, which are going to have their effect at some point on some subset of cells in your body. When we talk about this, we can say, well, how do we control the release of these hormones? Your body is really good at trying to limit waste, and so, being efficient. And so what happens is we have this cascade of hormones in many cases, especially in the hypothalamus, pituitary axis hormones. And what happens is the final hormone, as its level rises, what it does is it negatively feeds back onto the hypothalamus, or the first hormone. And so negative feedback, we have this cool little graphic. So on slide number 3, you can see this cool little graphic, and as the final hormone builds up, it stops the release of the tropic hormone. And remember, the tropic hormone is those intermediate, the hormones that are ultimately having an effect downstream on the final endocrine gland. And that's called negative feedback. So in many, and I'd even say most hormones, they're controlled by a negative feedback mechanism, which means that when the final hormone, when its levels rise, it inhibits the release of the tropic hormone. So because you have enough of the final hormone. Okay. Now, I'm going to stop soon, but I'm going to talk about slide number 4, and then we'll stop. So if you look at slide number 4, we see a graph at the top of it. And you can see a blip in the hormone, and then a blip in the hormone, and so on. And so across the bottom, it's time, and then concentrations of the hormone in the blood are represented by these bumps, these blips. And what that's telling us is if you draw blood on every 15-minute basis, that's what we're looking at here, you can see no hormone, pulse, no hormone, no hormone, pulse. So most hormones are released in what we call pulses. And so they go out and they're going to have their effect on their target cells. But hormones, you want them to change physiology. We had said that's what they do, is they change physiology. But it shouldn't last forever. It should be for a period of time. And so at the bottom of slide number 4, we can see something called receptor-mediated endocytosis. You've seen that once before, earlier this semester. And so what you see is this, what we call a coated pit, which is where a hormone combines to the receptors and it causes the change in physiology. And what happens is that coated pit comes inside and is still causing that change in physiology, and then the lysosome comes along and destroys it. And so it stops the effect of the hormone. So these first 4 slides are dealing with the sort of how hormones are secreted, what they're affecting, and how we limit the duration of this effect. All right, 11 minutes. I'm going to stop right here. I'll be back, though.